Hello there. This video is going to discuss the fancy components that are present in Chapter 16. So far, all we've pretty much done was use regular buttons, text fields, labels, and we can produce some nice GUIs with those. But you're used to having other components like radio buttons and drop-down buttons. And so I made a little GUI here to show you what we can do with those components here. These guys here are radio buttons because only one thing can be selected at a time. And don't worry too much about the colors being wacky. I purposely made the colors wacky to show you how you could style these components. And you'll notice that when you download this software, there's another file that's associated with the basic source code called appstyle.css. Now, if you're familiar with any type of web development, CSS is a way that you could style components on a web page. And so what JavaFX did was borrow that concept, and they said, well, they modeled the CSS file to look like what people use on the websites. And the idea behind styling is that you could have a separate file right here, and I'm going to talk about this as well. You have a separate file that has what are called selectors. Here's a selector, and that selector contains a bunch of specifications inside them. And so any particular component that has an ID of RYGP will have these specifications applied automatically to that component. Now, the beauty in having this is that you can have this sophisticated project with many files, and it's all compiled and it all works great. But if you don't like a particular color, if you don't like the way things are look in the app, you don't have to recompile the app. All you need to do is make a change to the CSS file and then restart the app, and then you're done. The app adjusts accordingly. So I think that's a pretty neat little feature there. And so let me bring back the app right. Nope, wrong one, wrong one. Where's my app? Where's my app? Where's my app? Oh, I must have closed it. I must have closed it. Let's run it again. Okay, it's right here. All right, so right here we've got some radio buttons. This guy here is a drop-down box. Now, the code that you see here is going to be used for your next assignment, homework 9, that deals with creating a GUI in preparation for our networking assignments. And so here I have a drop-down box of having these values here. And where did it go? I put it over here. Okay. And this guy here is a text area field. And now a text area field is like a text field, only you could have multiple lines inside that text field. So this is like a word processor in itself. So if I hit call to action, this is a regular button. And see what I'm doing right now is I'm reading the red, I'm reading the number 1. If I click the green and 5, call to action, I read the green and the 5 and put it in the text area field. So that's it. Let's take a look at it. Now the rest of this stuff here, same type of code. We won't spend too much time with that. Let me move this over. The one line that we want to look at is the get style sheets, which basically says on this scene we would like to add this particular file, appstyle.css, and that will load all the styles that are inside this file and apply them to the components inside the app. That's really the only real difference here. That's the only real difference. And my app GUI, basically, to make a GUI that looked like this, I needed to make a flow pane. And because flow panes, the one thing you got to get used to, flow panes will actually, if you specify that this whole panel right here is 200 by 200, it respects the size of the component. So if I add something to a flow pane, it doesn't make it bigger, it doesn't make it smaller, it actually makes it 200 by 200 because you specified that. So same thing here, same thing here. I think I made the width of these of this to be 200 and this 200 and this 200. It actually respects that. And then I had to make it, I had to make the width, I had to play around the width so that all these components line up right below each other. So it's not hard to deal with. Okay, I set the vertical gap, the line be in between lines in my flow to be 20 pixels. I put a little padding around here to be 5 on top, 20, 20, and 20 all around. This is I played with those numbers so that the GUI looked good. Okay, center your components in the middle. So now create a pane, red, yellow, green pane that's called RYGP, and basically inside that pane I go ahead and I lay out these radio buttons. This guy right here is a combo box. You don't need a special pane for that. A combo box is just what you see. You just basically create the combo box of strings. And then what I do here is I load that combo box of items. Basically this it says convert this one to a string by doing this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Add those strings in there. Set the value of the combo box to start off with as 1. So let's clear that. And let me show you that starts off with 1. Let's clear this. Start this up again. And there you go. So we see it starts off with the value 1 here. The nice thing about combo boxes is the values that you put inside the items are guaranteed to be those values. See, I could have made this a text field, but I could type in the Declaration of Independence in the text field. But if you ask for the number 1 through 10, you need to check to see if that text is 1 through 10. Here, it's guaranteed to be 1 through 10. So that's the nice thing about a combo box. There's the width of this thing to be 200. Okay, the text area with a default size of 200 by 200 is right there. 200 by 200. If I want this, if I keep typing a bunch of text and it goes beyond the margins, it automatically wraps. That's what that says. I don't want to make it editable because all I want to do is see if I'm just keeping clicking this and see what happens is if I make this green, if I filled this text box, it automatically adds scroll bars to this. It's a nice component. You're used to that component. But you're going to see something here where what I did was I added to that text area a special class. So see, on this text area, I grab the classes that are attached to it and add the class strange color. This is a relatively strange color. It looks like it's pink. Okay, so strange color. What I'm actually doing here is I'm going to my app style. Is there a strange color somewhere? There it is. Strange color is the selector. This is a class, and this class starts with a period. And what happens is anything that has this class strange color will have these particular specifiers associated with it. The text fill color is going to be pink. So anything that has this strange color attached to it is going to be pink because that's what was specified there. It's very easy to apply styles to particular components. Now here we have the button here. We have those buttons right there, call to action. And you'll notice that the button was actually styled kind of weird. This is pretty neat, this little function. I have a little gradient display here. Okay, and that's not hard to do. I'll show you. This is all done because this button has a style associated with it that adds a gradient to it. And basically, I also can hover over it to give you a nice little effect. I'm not doing that in code. I'm doing that with the style sheet. So it's a very, very simple thing to do. So don't worry about the style sheets right now. Just you see, I got a bunch of components. I have a pane that I have to talk about. I have a combo box. I have a text area. I add those things to the flow pane, and it's done. Now, red, yellow, green pane is a vertical box. This is one big vertical box. I have my radio buttons. These are individual radio buttons with the text. All right. And so I specified the size to be 100 by 100. That's fine. Spacing in between them is going to be 10 pixels. I center left these components. Otherwise, they look ugly. They look centered in there. So center left these components. I give this particular component an ID. Now, an ID, yeah, I'm going to have to talk about. There's differences between IDs and IDs in CSS and classes. So this particular component is given an ID of RYGB. Keep that in mind. Create your individual radio buttons. So I have my red, green, blue radio buttons. And for whatever reason, it just struck me that I'm going to add the strange color to the red. Okay, this is the red radio button and the yellow one. And then the green, I set the ID of the green to be RB green, radio button green. Now, I'm just throwing those things out there. There's no rhyme or reason to this. I just wanted to show you what happens here. And then I really wanted to show you that classes can be shared amongst multiple components. IDs cannot be shared. Once you set an ID to a component, then that ID can only be present in one particular component. If you put it on two components, it's undefined as to what's going to happen. So I'm very careful that if I have an ID of RB green, no other component is going to have that as an ID. Now, this is very important. What you need to do is put all those radio buttons in what's called a toggle group, and that toggle group will make sure that only one of them is selected at a time. Okay, and by the way, when I started off this app, I set selected to be true on the red button right there. Right there. And so if you ever want to determine which button was actually pressed, I call a method in that class that's called get selected text. This is what this button's going to do. This button's going to go ahead and ask, hey, it's guaranteed that only one of these is going to be selected. So if the red's selected, grab its text. If the yellow selected, grab its text, return it. Green's were selected, grab that text and return it. If nothing's selected, and it's possible, return null. And so this is pretty much it. Take a look. Here's the button. Call to action button, on action. This is the only thing that's really doing anything. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the selected text right here, call the red, and append that text to the text area. Make sure you put new lines at the end so that they form lines. Then I'm going to grab the value that's inside the combo box. Okay, that's the way you grab the value. It's a get value as opposed to get text. Should have been more consistent, but that's the way they did it. And I added a new line here to the end, and that's what's happening here. Perfect. Now, just a quick rundown here. Okay, now let's see. The button didn't have any special ID or class associated with it. Anything that's a button is automatically considered a class with a period. A period begins a class, and it's all these special descriptions that make that button look the way it does. Okay, and then you're not going to be experts in this. I'm not going to test you on that or anything. But if you want to hover over a button, then what's going to happen is you add this background color. And, okay, that's about it, actually. Anything that begins with a pound sign is an ID. And only one component will have that ID. Okay, a radio button has this automatic class. And the root of the entire app is basically the scene. This is the way you give every component that's inside your scene a bold feel and a default size of the font to be 12 points. Now, on my website, there's a very nice PowerPoint that describes how you can use JavaFX in your apps. Take a look at it, download it. I think you'll like it. It makes a lot of sense. So make sure you use what I showed you here for your next homework assignment. The next homework assignment is very quick, not difficult. I hope you enjoy it. All right, we'll see you. I guess we have a Zoom class on Wednesday on networking. I'll see you then. Bye.